Hey everybody. So I put this particular statue on layaway through Sideshow Collectibles several months ago when they first announced it. This is the latest of their Star Wars Darth Vader Mythos Statue collection. It's limited to a run of 4,500, so I wanted to make sure I got one. Their site is still showing it with a possible pre-order delivery date of January to March of 2023. So I was a bit surprised when I got an email the other day saying that mine was ready for delivery if I wanted to go ahead and pay off my layaway a little bit early so I could go ahead and get this. And I was like, sure, let's take a quick look at it. So what we see here is the front of the box, and to be honest with you, it's a little bland, surprisingly, compared to what you're going to see on the back. It does show one of the two major ways you can display this. I believe there's an alternative kind of split open, a little more of Anakin's face, helmeted head, as well as a couple of variations on the lightsaber itself. So I'm going to spin this around. Most of the box itself is pretty dark like this, and there's not a lot of other display graphics on it. Both sides are blank. The top only has the Star Wars logo, a little Star Wars logo on the side as you see. And this is actually the back of the box. And this, to me, almost should have been the front. To be surprised like this that the back of the box has better art and brighter art than the front was a little bit of a shock. But you know, again, it's just the outer panel. So, you know, maybe they figure you're only going to be looking at this for a few seconds. Now, the other thing about this is it is a big piece. Apparently, it's about 24 and a half or almost 25 inches by 25 inches once fully assembled. And when this box comes to you, if it comes to you the same way mine did, is that they're going to let you know you have to sign for it. So be prepared if that's the case. UPS delivered mine. It comes shipped in a brown Sideshow box, which I already took off just because it was covered with bird poop. So you pay $100 for shipping on this thing, and the box arrives covered in bird droppings. So I was a little disappointed about that, so I took that off not to have to show that to you on camera. But again, the box itself has a little bit of damage, but I'm not worried that it's actually impacted the statue. I'm sure this thing is packed pretty well. So we'll take a quick look at that inside and see what we got. Holy Toledo, this thing is huge. I did not really think about it until I got it out of the box. I mean, I don't even know where the heck I'm going to put this thing now that I'm looking at it. As you can see, it is several major pieces which are made of a substance called polystone, along with a few accessories that are made out of ABS plastic, such as the two lightsaber blades, as you see here, one more in flames, one more standard. You have a couple of his robe tassels there. You have his left and right hands and arms. Some flame accents for the actual base, which is right here. As I mentioned earlier, it looks like a X-Wing engine and one of the blaster pieces there, so I'm very excited to get that together just to see how it looks. You come with 3 heads, actually. I thought there was only 2. So you have the fully visible Anakin head with all of the scarring, and this looks really, really nice. And I have to say, it's probably a half pound just by itself. Next, you have the Vader damaged helmet, where you can see Anakin peeking out there. And I think this is the one I'm probably going to go with for my permanent display. I really like that kind of sinister look we've got going on. And then finally, you have a little bit of a battle damage, but still intact Darth Vader head, which is also a nice choice. Of the 3, again, I think I really like this battle damaged Vader helmet more than I do the Anakin or the regular one. I think this just kind of shows a little bit more of that kind of toughness of him. And I think it'll blend a little better with the overall damage that you can see here. This is the actual, his actual torso and legs. And as you can see, there's damage to one of his robotic legs with some of the robotic pieces sticking out. And then you can also see damage to him and some of his flesh showing there. A little bit of damage to his torso and his light bright, as I like to call it, on his chest there. And then the last big piece is this great big billowing cape. And I cannot wait to put this on. This thing is probably 5 or 6 pounds just by itself. And it's absolutely beautiful. Made of that polystone. Yeah, this is definitely a piece that is not going to go anywhere once you set it down and get it ready for display. So very excited here. I'll also include a few photos of this thing as I was removing it. Inside of the actual box, there is a large, very, very secure styrofoam packing, 2 sections. The first section had about half of the pieces, and obviously the base and some of the bigger pieces were in the bottom. Very well packaged, even though the box itself had some damage and the outer box had some dents and obviously, as I mentioned, bird poop. The interior pieces look great. There's no damage of any kind. I'm still picking off a few pieces of styrofoam, so if you see any white displayed, that's probably just extra little pieces of the styrofoam from inside there. So next, we'll go ahead and get this thing assembled and get it on a rotation table so we can take a quick look at it. All right, so here we have the assembled piece, and it is so large I had to take the camera off of the tripod because I just can't get far enough away to show you the whole thing in one frame. And as you can see, this thing is absolutely beautiful. It's over 25 inches tall, and I have to say I am not disappointed at all in the quality of the build or the paint job. Starting with the torso itself, just the granular details of both the damage, the wrinkled and flame damaged skin, all of the lights and buttons and switches are so nicely detailed on this thing. Even on his belt, you can just see the battle damage and see every little piece and light. It gives that impression, the way they've painted it, of being lit from inside. And to me, that just really adds to the life-like features of this thing as a whole. Going down to the legs, you can see the damage on there. You can see how his robotic arms and legs are starting to come through, and still see the damage to what remains of his legs. And I mean, it's just beautiful. Looking a little further down, one thing I do like is the way they've painted this thing. Is you have those red accents right there on his robe that are there to indicate the shadow and the reflection of that, Sith blade coming off of him. And I think that is just one of those details that so many mid-grade statues miss. Just those plain black would have been all you would have expected to see. But here they've taken the extra time to give those, again, lighting highlights without having internal lighting on this thing. When you get a little further down into the base itself, beautiful, beautiful piece. The thing I do like about this, and maybe this is standard for all Sideshow statues, I've never actually had one before, so this is my first time, is all of these pieces and accessories are actually connected through a small indenture, and they're magnetic, which I love, because then you don't have to worry about these things falling out. Once it's in there and it's secured by that magnet, they're not going anywhere. And that applies to the flames, it applies to the X-Wing laser, it applies to the limbs, to the head, the foot, the foot down here in the back, and the cape are actually attached by both a small little metal pin as well as that magnet. So those do sink in and set very well. And I'm sure they did that just to give this thing enough sturdiness that you wouldn't worry that a magnet might not be strong enough to hold it to the base. And just because you have so much of the weight of this very heavy cape, billowing cape, they probably put that pin in there just to avoid it being too top heavy and possibly pulling off. So just a phenomenal job on that as a whole. I love the detail of his gloves and just the sinister look overall of everything about this piece. As you can see here, I'm currently showing you that glaring stare of Anakin in his full damage there, and it's beautiful. I'm more surprised seeing it on him like this. I am more inclined to want to keep this piece on just for that reason, because it just really gives such a ominous, gaze coming upon you. And again, look at the detailing inside of the mask there. I mean, so many things that you would get this size might be this size, but the cost doesn't usually justify it. But here you've got these small granular details inside of the piece. And the nice thing I like is with all of these magnetic pieces being on there, they're very easy to remove. And so I could easily swap these out and show and display one of these other heads very easily. Here you have the slightly damaged Vader head. And again, I love the fact that it is showing damage. So many of his statues are usually just him standing there bright and shiny and impervious to everything. And that does kind of portray that evil and how indestructible he is. But then when you get a piece like this that just shows you, here he is after some horrifying battle, and he comes out on top, and he's here damaged, significantly, and he's still standing. That to me makes him even more terrifying, just because of that fact that he can handle this and keeps on coming, just like a Terminator. And finally, the last head, and this is the one that I thought I would show for the most part, and I think I might start with this one, is the damaged helmet, similar to what you saw in Obi-Wan Kenobi. in the show there, that battle damage type of helmet where you can just see that glare of his coming through. I think that really captures Vader at his best, and I'll probably display him with this piece at least for now. But I have a feeling as I get this in its final resting place in the display case and get the lighting on it, I could find myself very easily using any of those three heads depending on my mood or depending on the situation, and being happy with any of those three. And it's so easy to swap them out. It's, you know, it makes perfect sense that you'd keep them readily available just so you could do that. So, you know, you won't have a hard time picking one out. You'll just have a hard time figuring out how often you display the other ones because they're just so darn good. And again, just that granular detail inside of the mask and down to his pupils. I mean, just look at that. Look at that glare. It just feels so lifelike when you're looking at it. So the last thing I have to talk about is the one ugly out of the good, bad, and ugly of this piece here, and that is the lightsabers. As you can see here, I currently have it displayed with the standard, you know, red Sith blade, and this is the ABS piece that I believe they're referring to. I think everything else is the polystone, and that's the problem. These blades connect into the saber hilt with a little peg and a slight indentation to align them to fit in there quite nicely. This one worked without a problem, but when I pulled this one out and decided to try it actually in the saber hilt, I couldn't get it to actually stay in, and I was puzzled. What was I doing wrong? Was I missing something? And yeah, actually I am, and I apologize if this won't focus, but the little tip that you see on the standard blade here is broken off. It actually came out of the package broken. And that to me kind of just blows my mind. You know, here's a brand new statue, limited edition, and it came with a broken piece. And I would have blamed it on the delivery or something like that, but the piece was well packaged and wrapped, and this was sitting in a very secure area. And I actually had to pull most of the foam packing out of the box to find the small little nib, which I did. So it isn't that I'm putting this in wrong. It's actually got a small broken piece, and you can see where it broke off at that edge and should be mounted on there. But without that little tiny piece, this doesn't have enough leverage to actually stay in the saber hilt. So I reached out to Sideshow Collectibles and placed an inquiry to let them know I got a broken piece in my brand new $800 statue, and I'm hoping they'll do the right thing and actually replace this, because this is very disappointing to me. Because once I got this out of the wrapper, I really wanted to display it with this piece. The more I saw it, the cooler I thought it was. So I'm a little disappointed. I got to go back to the one that I originally planned on putting it in there with, and that's this one. But for now, that looks fine. There's just a little concern, and I'm going to have to be very careful anytime I move or touch this to warn people, don't pull or bang on that, because now I'm afraid all it's going to take is a little bit of pressure and that thing's going to snap off. So my hope is, again, that they will ship me a new one of these. If not, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'll have to get some, you know, epoxy and two-part epoxy and try to put it together. But I don't want to do that. Again, this is an expensive piece. It's beautiful. And I don't want to have to jury rig something up to make it, you know, work the way I'd like it to. So again, overall, this is just a beautiful, beautiful piece. Very heavy, very sturdy. It's limited to a run of 4,500 pieces. This one was number 2370 out of the 4,500. It's still available for pre-order on the Sideshow website, and they're still anticipating delivery between now and March. So if you get your order in, I'm sure you won't have to wait long to get it. I was very pleasantly surprised to get mine early like this. So overall, if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it probably a 9 out of 10. The only reason it's not a 10 is just that darn ABS lightsaber. If it had come without any issues there, I would have rated this a 10 out of 10 and been extremely happy with it. I'm already looking forward to purchasing my next Sideshow Collectible statue. If this is an example of the quality and detail, I am extremely happy and can't wait to get more to add to my collection. So again, if you have any questions or you'd like to see additional photos, I will set up a Google folder that I'll share in the comments below so you can see it. If you'd like me to pull any pieces off or show you something in a little more detail, please feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to do whatever I can to show it to you. So this is Old and Surly, just taking a little break from the Legos and showing you something else to add to your Star Wars collection, especially if you're an Empire fan like I am and love Vader. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. Take care and have a great day.